In this lesson, I'm going to introduce MDX, or multidimensional expressions, which is the language that we use when we're working with multidimensional cubes in analysis services. So first, what is MDX? So let's define it. MDX stands for multidimensional expressions, and these are queries or calculations that we use to analyze the data that we store in our OLAP databases. This is an expression language that was invented by Microsoft engineers back in the late 90s and was introduced with Microsoft OLAP services in SQL Server 7. MDX became a standard way to query multidimensional databases and was implemented by a lot of other vendors and is still used in other solutions today. However, Microsoft Analysis Services is probably the product that's most closely associated with this language because it's so widely adopted. Let's look at the basic MDX syntax. And I assume that you know something about SQL or SQL. And so as we look at the MDX, we'll kind of compare it with SQL and try to draw some parallels to help you understand it. And this is a basic query. Well, this is analogous to a select from table that we would do in SQL Server. And it begins with normally a select keyword, although it can have this with keyword that we'll get into later. But we might say select measures or members on columns. And this is just like what we would use in SQL. So in SQL we would say select A, B, C. And that's a lot like what columns is. Rows is more like a pivot table. So if you think about select this on columns, that on rows, that basically maps to a pivot table. And then we have a from. Normally in from, you'll be using a cube name in most simple queries. And cube name here, really you can think of kind of like the database. So your database has measures, it has dimensions and so on, and you can select those things from your cube. And then the where clause normally is doing the same things you would expect in SQL. It's limiting the results that come back with your query. As far as notation in MDX, let's just talk about the things that you'll see in queries and make sure that you understand it. You'll see a lot of brackets in MDX, and brackets are used to indicate identifiers that have spaces in them. This is the same that we would do in T-SQL within the SQL Server relational product. Braces are used to indicate sets of things. So this is very much like mathematics, where we use set notation. We use braces, like the set of 1, 2, 3, 4 has 4 integers. Within MDX, when you see those braces, it just means that within here is a set of stuff. And you will see that quite a bit in MDX and in places where in SQL you wouldn't need anything to indicate a set of columns, for example. In MDX you do need it. The ampersand works kind of like it does in the C programming language or in some other languages, where it means like the address of or the key of. So if you notice here we have time month Jan, which is give me the member that represents January. Under that we have time month ampersand 1, which is give me the month that has the key of 1, which is January in this case. So those two expressions really mean the same thing, just two ways to express the same idea. And finally we have the parentheses, which are used to form a tuple. Some people pronounce tuple. I think either one is okay. And what a tuple is you can think of it like an intersection of things. So if I want to look at sales in January, that's kind of like the intersection of the sales value in the month of January. And those parentheses indicate that, you know, that's the cell that I'm looking at. So if I was in the Excel product, and if you think about a cell as an intersection of A and 4, think of that like a tuple, and that's exactly what these parentheses are doing in this case.